Hello, we are so excited to join the Women in Product Conference. My name is Samantha Gonzalez, and I am an Associate Director of Product Strategy at a digital agency called Dockyard. And joining me is my good friend Tess Hermes. Hey, Tess.
Hi, Sam. My name is Tess Hermes. I am a co-founder and lead facilitator at Yes and Sell. I also work in ed tech at a place called Dewey. I work under the sales organization, but I work with lots and lots of product folks. And my company is all around training professionals with improv.
Yeah, well, great. I mean, we've been talking about this fireside chat topic, which is radical uncertainty in product for a while. And at this very moment in time, I mean, we've got this radical, like insane economic turmoil. People are being laid off in tech left and right. We've got
Yes.
these technical innovations of AI that may replace us in a matter of months or years. So there is a whole lot of uncertainty and unknowns that we're facing right now. And we've talked about how we both feel like we embrace a mindset that we're not attached to potential outcomes, right? And we're
Yeah.
capable of facing the unknown and being present with ourselves when new information comes in. And we really think that the root of that is in our background of improv. And that's how we met
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. We met because we were both cast in an improv show together, and I think just yeah, I guess the platform of theater in general really was a really safe place for us to just really connect and be super vulnerable and open. Um, but I do think, yeah, we were chatting about this idea of like radical uncertainty and how a lot of people are having so much anxiety around it. And it's very interesting that we both kind of land on the same idea of being really kind of comfortable with it.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, that's how I got into improv is I was speaking with a mentor around I feel like that inner critic was really loud in everything that I was doing from the work that I was putting in, the imposter syndrome, my relationship with my body. I mean, there was a whole lot around every part of my life that I felt I was working off of fear and not working off of curiosity and being vulnerable and then like
Mhm.
connecting with others and with myself. And by getting into improv, I was able to break through a lot of that. And I know you've talked about that too,
Yeah.
really like that the deficits in your life that you feel like you've been able to overcome that with improv.
Yeah. So I kind of had a similar experience when it came to improv. As a young professional, I was experiencing that like analysis paralysis thing where I needed to say the exact right thing. Unfortunately, I couldn't think of it at the exact right time. And that was really challenging for me. I feel like when I started to kind of get into improv, which is something that a mentor suggested, I it was a really interesting exercise and like almost diagnostic, and that it showed me a lot of these skills that I thought I was really like fine tuned at. Like I thought I was very present, but I really wasn't. And it wasn't until I was actually in a space of like playing where there was like low stakes and it wasn't about the thing, like it wasn't about my career, it wasn't about being in like therapy, it was just about sort of like this space that like had no stakes, that I was able to kind of like have these pieces of me come up in a way that like was really just information. I thought I
Right.
was a really great listener, and in some ways I was, but there were just these lots of exercises and even just being in scenes and noticing how I wasn't as present as I thought I was. And then I was able to exercise those skills over and over. And that really, I mean, just obviously fundamentally changed my life. Otherwise, I wouldn't be in the position that I'm in, having my own company that
Mhm.
is all based around professionals benefiting from the art of improv.
Yeah, well, that brings us to a great segue. We've been talking about improv, and let's define it, right? Like for
Oh,
you,
fine.
is it's part of your profession. Most people would know improv from pop culture references, like Whose Line Is It Anyway? Or I know that there was a Netflix murder mystery sort of improvised thing, and then people, there's a whole lot that people might have around improv theaters and things like that, more famous organizations and stuff. But how would you define improv for us?
Well, first of all, I would say it's a team sport. I think a lot of folks, when they think of like comedy, because it's improv comedy, think of stand up comedians, which are, solo act that has been written and performed, where improv is a team sport. There are typically more than two people, and not always, sometimes it's just two people. Um, and it is not scripted at all. Oftentimes, there are suggestions, and from there, we would just make up whether it's a story or a scene. There are long forms and short forms, but the idea mainly is that we are just making up theater on the spot. So it's very very challenging and extremely nerve wracking. And I would say that when you get into classes, like most of my students do not have a goal of being on the stage. Some do. Most, I think, are really looking to stretch certain muscles that
Hmm.
we just don't get to stretch without there being a lot of like, I think, high stakes or like emotional,
Hmm.
having to sort of emotionally pull something apart. I love improv because it's sort of just like, makes you go like, oh my gosh, I'm not being collaborative. I'm not really listening right now.
Yeah,
But then you get to throw that away. Like you get to throw away
right.
this like thing and be like,
Yeah,
okay, well now I just got this data and I can do something different with this. I can make a
right.
different
It's
choice.
right. It's
And that
working without the working, right? Like we say,
exactly.
play is the core of improv, that we are playing together, and that playful nature is something that, like, it's a muscle, right? That you have to
Exactly.
continually
It's
work through.
and I think the throwaway nature of that is what kind of brings us back into this resilience, this like radical uncertainty, getting
Yeah.
accustomed to having all of these incredible creative things happen on stage and knowing that that will never happen again. Like
Hmm.
that was the scene gives you this kind of like appreciation for the moment and then the ability to go like, oh well, I've gathered all these skills and I can move forward.
Right, right. And that it really does. I mean, there's been studies around that it changes your brain patterns, right? You're able to shut off the prefrontal cortex, right? Which is the part of your brain that is making the judgments and that critic.
Yeah.
That's also really helpful, right? But sometimes when you're trying to be creative, like when you're solutioning, or you're working through something with your team or with a client, it can really, really be helpful in getting you a lot more confident, and, like you said, that resilience and like that durability too, and just like better acceptance and mindfulness in what you're doing, and enjoyment too. I think it just brings me a
Yeah,
lot more
yeah, you
enjoyment
could
to my
enjoy
work.
that, right? Because you're not
Right,
just like you're not grading yourself on every little thing that you're
right.
doing. I feel like we should
Yeah.
play a game. Can we play a
Okay,
game?
yeah. Yeah, we can play a game.
Okay, cool. I want to play five things. It's one of my favorites. I think it's an easy one to play with a team.
Uh-huh.
And also, if you want to go ahead and put in the chat any ideas you have while we're playing, because
Oh,
why
that's a
not?
good
It's
idea.
super
Yeah,
fun. Yeah.
yeah.
So the way that five things works is I'm going to ask Sam, tell me five things that, and I will just give some kind of like a qualifier. So maybe it's like five fruits, maybe it's five pieces of furniture. It could be even a little bit five things you would say to your doctor, something like that. And then Sam is going to rattle those off as quickly as she can. Um, the point isn't to be right. If I said five fruits and the first thing you said was pizza, that's fine. We're just trying to rattle things off and get into the sort of, I guess, the comfort of being able to rattle things off without feeling like this like ultra stress around it. I kind of want to have fun with it
Right.
because We're in this like product, uh, women in product conference. So, okay, Sam, give me 5 things that you would never tell a client if you were going to be really, or if you were going to be a day late with something.
Okay. Got it. I don't like the feature that we that you requested.
Ooh. One,
Uh, the team doesn't care anymore.
two,
You were unclear in your requirements.
ooh, three.
I'm taking a day off tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah, you are. Four.
And I'm looking for a new job, so I don't care about this.
Yeah, bye bye. Great job. Yay. This is such a fun game to play with our team. You can use really anything. I also think it's a great bonding moment. You know, we all have these moments. Put your ideas in the chat.
Yeah, I
Um,
want to hear. I'm excited to see them.
yeah, I'm sure people are going to come up with some good ones.
Yeah,
So,
that's a great way of like this is something you can just pull out of your hat really quickly, and we want to help you also start building your toolkit. Right, is what we've discussed. We'll give you some resources of activities that you can do immediately. Right, because this is we've talked about this a lot. Like this is something that is very approachable. Right, that you can start doing ahead of warm-ups for workshops or things like that, or getting to know you, and especially in remote settings too, right? It can be really really hard to have that connection, body language communication, but you can still unlock that. Yeah,
totally. Yeah, there are
yeah,
still ways of being playful and connected remotely. And with Yes and Sell, a lot, I mean, the majority of our trainings are remote. And so that's been a huge, crucial part of the curriculum and how I get people on board is just there's lots of ways that we can totally connect and have a good time and benefit from improv and do it over Zoom or whatnot. So,
yeah,
which kind
yeah.
of
Well,
leads
Tess,
me into like,
yeah, I was gonna say, okay, I'm gonna read you off a couple of themes that I've seen
yeah,
transitioning into from the Women in Product Facebook group and LinkedIn groups that I'm a part of, Product Twitter. So these are common themes that I'm seeing people talk about right now that are also kind of mainstays of like pain points that we have as product leaders. But there's a lot within career transitions, either transitioning into product or out of product, job hunting, especially after being laid
mhm,
off, and like what we'll talk about. Maybe you can help us go into like the foundations of improv, and
mhm.
what that means when you failed, burnout, finding joy and purpose in your work, being new to people management, and then fear when it comes to joining a new team or project. There's a lot of unknowns, complexities, unclear expectations or requirements. So think all of that. Do you feel like that is a good fit for applying the basics of improv into those
Yeah,
pain
yeah.
points?
I mean, this set is what a lot of professionals are experiencing right now. These set of like topics, and it's something that I face a lot with the folks that I train, whether it's individuals or it's within companies. We talk about a lot of these different things, and improv, I think, addresses a lot of these different types of topics. Like I said, it's not something that you just benefit from in a 20-minute chat. It's something that you continuously do. Um, and I think the first thing that I would want to talk about is the idea of yes. So in improv, there's kind of a number of rules. The first rule across the board is the idea of yes. So the idea of yes is basically saying yes to something, to saying, and basically coming in with an open mind because if you are on stage and you're starting a scene and someone just shuts you down and says no, like if I say, "Oh, you're such a good doctor," and someone says, "I'm not a doctor," like where do you go from there?
Hmm.
You don't necessarily have to agree with someone's mindset or exactly kind of like what they're saying. If you don't agree with the content of what they're saying, you can still say yes without agreeing with them. You can say, I agree
Right.
that this is an important thing to talk about.
So it's
I
more of the acknowledgement, right? And still set it like you can keep a
acknowledge,
boundary and say
yes,
yes.
and
Yeah.
having an open mind too. Like
Yeah.
not just sort of constantly trying to poke holes in things and just assuming that like you're going to collaborate together.
Right.
Which brings me to the next point, which is yes, and it's not enough to just come in with an open mindset. You have to contribute as well. So if those two pieces are like the only two things that you really, really take away from today, which I feel like everybody pretty much, I know that like a lot of professionals are problem solvers and they come in with a lot of these mindsets already. But I think it's something that when you're aware of it and you start to actually like make it a part of your muscle memory of coming in and hearing someone out and being present
Hmm.
and then saying like, uh-huh, I agree that like whether it's I agree that of what you're saying, I agree that this is important, I agree that this is a
Right.
discussion topic that we need to discuss, and then saying, you know, and I also think that, you know, I can recognize that you're spending 20 hours a week on, you know, with your team around this particular issue. When
Right.
you add to it, there's just more to go, like more places to
Right.
go, and you're collaborating and you're staying present. I think
Right.
sometimes too, it's so important to stay present because we don't want to come locked and loaded with people and kind of like steamroll them with our own ideas. So that's a huge
Right.
improv as well, is that active listening, that like collaboration piece.
Right. It's really important. Yeah, that responding and not reacting, right? Like for you to know where you're coming from and to hear what they're saying and that yeah, and then also the important part of that too is right is vulnerability, right? And in vulnerability there is failure and that fear of failure, right? And that's the other
Yeah.
piece that I know you talk about a lot.
Yeah. So, in at Yes and Sell, my company, we talk about the failure bow, which is this mechanism. It's a tool for you. Anytime that we're in class and we feel like we've don't totally understand an exercise, we messed up, we just put our hands in the air and we say, I failed, and everybody applauds and congratulates them. And it's just sort of a play on the idea of failure. We are so terrified to fail, but when we're in this low stakes environment and we're able to just admit that we flubbed up, it really kind of it's like a tension release valve. It really
Hmm.
gives us the ability to just kind of be playful and understanding and empathetic with ourselves. And I
Yeah.
think that when we exercise that muscle more, we're able to come really more authentically. And I don't know,
Yeah.
there's something about I love this idea of like I'm not afraid to have people watch me trying.
I love that.
There's so much about we're so afraid to try things and people to see us. I mean, I think of like being in a yoga class and just being like terrified to have someone see me like stretch in a weird way. And it's like there's something, there's something so powerful about saying like I'm not afraid to try something and for people to see me
Yeah.
like I exist and
Right.
I'm continuously learning and I'm like and it's okay, you know?
Right. And also around also receiving criticism, right? Whether that's from a peer or 100 job interviews that you're going on,
Yeah.
for you to, see yourself as open to that, I think is really impactful and important. Well, Tess, we're out of time today, and I know we'll go into our Q&A after this. So folks can reach out to you if they want to bring you on to their company, maybe to engage. So yesandsell.com. You can also look up some local improv groups if that's something that you're looking to do. We'll provide y'all with some exercises that you can do with your teams immediately. And thank you so much for joining us and hope you feel you can face radical uncertainty better.
Thank you.